Regulatory requirements had evolved. Our process documentation was like a Swiss cheese. And what I thought was a robust process was a house of cards held together by undocumented operator tricks. Maybe you're staring at a similar situation right now. Timeline pressure mounting, stakeholders asking for updates you can't confidently give, that nagging feeling that there's something critical you're missing. You're not wrong to feel that way. One day, our process development head leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Guys, I have a quick tech transfer to our existing facility. A piece of cake." Those were his exact words, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We had the process nailed, the timeline was tight but doable. The receiving side had done this before. Except, here is what nobody told me. Regulatory requirements had evolved. Our process documentation was like a Swiss cheese, and what I thought was a robust process was a house of cards held together by undocumented operator tricks. Maybe you're staring at a similar situation right now. Timeline pressure mounting, stakeholders asking for updates you can't confidently give, that nagging feeling that there's something critical you're missing. You're not wrong to feel that way. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brühlmann, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Today, I'm giving you the framework that could have saved our team months of delays and millions in costs. The 6-pillar approach that turns tech transfer from a gamble into a managed process. Let's begin. Here is what we're covering. First, the 6 essential pillars in every tech transfer, and why missing just one of them puts your project at risk. Second, the technical essentials, specifically why mass transfer physics change everything at scale. Third, the stakeholder strategy that turns resistance into genuine partnership. Fourth, when to build internal capability versus outsource, the decision framework nobody teaches you in grad school. And fifth, real implementation, your 12-week tech transfer preparation protocol. Let me tell you why this matters right now. FDA data shows that over 40% of CMC-related IND issues trace back to manufacturing problems. Not formulation, not analytics, manufacturing. And here's the thing, tech transfer is now the number one CDMO differentiation factor. Lonza's data projects that by 2029, 56% of all biologics will be manufactured by CDMOs. What are the hidden costs? Poor tech transfer doesn't just delay your program, it questions comparability. It may lead to expensive bridging studies. It hands your competitor the market window you were counting on. But here is the opportunity. You master this and you compress timelines while everyone else scrambles to put out fires. You become the person leadership trusts with the critical path. So let's talk about the 6 pillars. Pillar number 1, the technical process understanding. Here's the physics challenge you need to tackle. What works brilliantly at 2 liters can fail spectacularly at 2,000 liters. Not because you did something wrong, because physics changes. Mass transfer is the big one. Specifically KLA, the oxygen transfer coefficient. Lars Brühlmann and Rick Volger explained this well on another podcast episode. Bubble size changes with scale. The residence time changes and mixing patterns change. Here's a concrete example. Your 2-liter benchtop bioreactor might have a KLA of 15 to 25 per hour. On the other hand, your 2,000-liter production vessel might be at 8 to 15 per hour. That's roughly a 40 to 60% reduction in oxygen transfer efficiency. And if you're not planning for it, your high-density fed batch is going to underperform at scale. Now think about what that means for a high-density fed batch culture. If your cells are oxygen limited at production scale, but not at bench scale, you're going to see different growth profiles, different metabolite accumulation, and at the end of the day, a different product quality. Your action item here is straightforward but not easy. Map every critical process parameter and ask, is this scale dependent or is it scale independent? The temperature set point, is it scale independent? Mixing time, very scale dependent. Impeller tip speed, scale dependent. pH control strategy, well, it depends on your system. Can your large-scale bioreactor system supply the oxygen your cell line needs? That's also a very important question to ask. Make that list before you commit to a tech transfer timeline. Pillar number 2, analytical comparability. Here's the blind spot I've seen. Teams obsess over the process, feed rates, the temperature profiles, the aeration strategy, and they completely neglect the sampling plan. Let me be direct. Analytics isn't separate from tech transfer. It is tech transfer. Think about it. How do you prove your process transferred successfully? You measure it. And if your analytical methods aren't validated at the receiving site, or if your sampling plan doesn't have statistical power or is not even existent, you're building conclusions on quicksand. What you need is side-by-side comparability with real rigor, a full product characterization panel for the final products, and forced degradation studies to demonstrate that your comparability holds up under stress. This is where a lot of tech transfer actually failed, not because the process drifted, because nobody designed a sampling strategy robust enough to detect when it drifted. Pillar number 3, quality by design foundation. Gene Lee said something on the podcast that should be tattooed on every CMC scientist's forehead. Start CMC planning early. You can't retrofit smart strategy. Here is the quality by design chain. You start with the quality target product profile, which then allows you to define what are the critical quality attributes, and then lastly, which will lead to defining the critical process parameters. If you don't know what quality means for your products, you literally cannot transfer the process because you don't know what to measure and you don't know what to control. And another mistake I see is that teams are hoping the CDMO will figure it out. They ship over a process description and some batch records and say, make it work. That's not a tech transfer. That's a wish. Your CDMO will execute your plan. But if you don't provide one, they will improvise or they will force you onto their platform and just do it their way. And their improvisation might be scientifically sound, but it may be completely wrong for your regulatory strategy or for your future manufacturing commercial strategy. In other words, define your CQAs before tech transfer, not during the crisis call after the first batch fails. Pillar number 4, stakeholder management. I'm going to tell you about the QC guy who taught me the most important tech transfer lesson of my career. And it had absolutely nothing to do with science. But that's coming in part 2. Stay tuned for what derails many projects. It's stakeholder management. Pillar number 5, partner selection and management. Let's do a CDMO reality check. Your CDMO partner has deep expertise. They've scaled up hundreds of processes, but be aware that they execute your plan. If you don't have a plan, they might improvise. And that improvisation might be brilliant. It also might be completely misaligned with your strategy or your competitive timeline or your quality requirements. Selection criteria matter more than most people realize. According to Lonza, technology transfer capabilities have become a critical differentiator for successful partnerships and risk mitigation. Technical capability is essential, but you also need a regulatory track record. Have they filed INDs, BLAs for your specific modality? And then the last thing is the cultural fit. And here I don't necessarily refer to the geographical culture fit, albeit this can be a factor. It's also just, are you comfortable working with that team? Do they ask hard questions or do they promise no problem to everything? So keep in mind that choosing a CDMO or a CRO is like getting married to someone because you're going to work with them several years down the road. And that second one is actually a red flag because the CDMO that promises smooth sailing without probing your process understanding, they are either overconfident or they don't care enough to push back. You want a partner who challenges your assumptions early, not the one who surfaces problems after you've committed 3 months and $500,000. Pillar number 6, strategic build versus outsource. Alfredo Martinez gave us this principle of one of the podcast episodes. He said, think holistically before building because infrastructure is expensive. And not just expensive in capital. It's expensive in time. It's expensive in opportunity cost. And it's expensive in the expertise you need to hire and retain. I will give you the full decision framework in part 2. But here is the preview question. Are you building core competitive advantage or are you building commodity infrastructure? Because if it's commodity infrastructure, somebody else has already built it better and cheaper. That's the framework. 6 pillars that most people never think about systematically. But knowing the pillars isn't enough. You need the playbook. In part 2, I'm walking you through real implementation. The QC conflict story that changed how I think about stakeholders, the light exposure discovery that taught me to document everything, your 12-week preparation protocol with go, no-go gates, and the build versus outsource decision matrix. If you like today's conversation about scale-up and tech transfer, please tell us by leaving a review and share it with the friends who might find this resource helpful. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time in part 2. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.